How do I start this video? How do I do these again? Oh, hi, I'm Matt Golson, and this is another insane budget photography. So today we're looking at a real old camera. This is my original Canon 10D. This was my actual second digital SLR. It was designed, made in 2003. I bought mine in 2005. This camera was $2,000 when it came out, and that was considered like a massive bargain. People were like, wow, I can't believe Canon can sell it that cheap. I bought mine 2 years. I bought mine in late 2005. It'd been out for 2 years, and I got mine for $500. So it already lost like 75% of its value. And today, I just checked eBay. You might be able to sell one of these for $50, but you might not. So, you know, who knows? Okay, so let's go over some stuff about this camera. Well, first off, this was the APS-C, the 1.6 crop that most people are pretty familiar with when it comes to digital cameras. So it's got the distinction of not being able to use the Canon EFS lenses that were designed for that particular crop factor, because they hadn't designed them yet when they come out with this. So it uses any traditional Canon lens. You can, though, modify a Canon lens to work by just cutting some of the extra, an EFS lens by cutting some extra plastic off. So this is the 18 to 55 kit lens, EFS lens. I cut a little bit of extra plastic off, and it does fit. It's a little tight, but it snaps on and everything works as it should. Why would anybody want this? Well, it's hard to recommend this camera. I mean, when you can get a 5D Mark I for maybe $150, $200 or something, it's hard to recommend buying this for $50. But if you just really want a super cheap digital SLR to just try one, and you don't want to hardly spend any money, and you want one that's like actually rugged and tough, then this is the camera for you. This is a very tough, rugged camera body. It's magnesium. It's a whole lot tougher and heavier. I mean, I'm not scared to drop it and throw it and stuff like that. It's not. I think I hurt my finger. So anyway, like I said, I'm not scared to drop it or throw it or break it or do anything with it. I mean, it still works. It still takes great pictures. You could throw it across the room and probably still work, because this is a whole lot tougher. Now, I have taken this camera on many trips. I've taken it all over the place. And, you know, it looks pretty much brand new. I've had it now. This is for 14 years, and I've still had this camera. So it has ISO 3200, but you don't want to use it. This thing shoots pretty decently, ISO 800. It's a whole lot like film was back in the day. ISO 200, 400, a little bit of grain, 800 a lot more, 1600 a lot of grain. This at 3200, I mean, you can take pictures, but it's pretty useless. You're not going to want to actually use them or look at them. The biggest problem for me, the thing that got on to me more than anything, it takes like 2 seconds to start up. So if you have it switched off and you go turn it on, 1, 2, it takes 2 seconds from the time you turn it on to take a picture. And it turns itself off. You know, you can adjust this, but you know, generally it turns itself off, and you know, you click the button, there's 2 seconds before it'll turn back on, so you need to leave it on pretty much all the time. Another thing that people are going to be really kind of like blown away about, it has this tiny little screen. Zoom in on that tiny screen. It's a 1.8-inch LCD screen, and it's like tiny, and you can just barely see it. Everything is so small compared to a modern DSLR, where the screen would be like most of the back of this. Things that it does do, things that you can expect. It's got, you know, a flash sync. It's got flash sync. It's got remote shutter connection, so you can do, you know, some stuff with that. It's pretty nice. It has the dual control wheels. You've got the control wheel. You've got the control wheel. So you've got dual control wheels that you don't have in the Rebel series, and you've got a hot shoe, and you've got the groovy little pop-up flash. Boop, so you can take flash pictures. And it takes a really nice big the same batteries that you find in like the 5D. Takes these really nice big lithium batteries that you do get a lot more shots than you would get out of a like a Rebel with their tiny little square batteries. So, you know, there's some advantages. Also, you've got diopter. You can control, you can focus in diopter. And, you know, viewfinder, it's okay. It's not great. So, anyway, I mean, can I recommend this camera? Only if you wanted to try DSLR, Canon DSLR, and you had $50 and that's all you could spend, or if somebody found one, gave you one. It's kind of, you know, cool to be using such an old camera. So I thought we'd try a little challenge. So the challenge is going to be my Canon 10D crazy old digital SLR against Shauna's Samsung S7, and we are going to do, there's the S7, zoom over here or pan over here. We've got some product shots that she needs to get for Instagram. So we're going to do a little comparison. I'm going to put a 50 on this and photograph that, and we'll use her phone. We'll do a comparison. We'll see which one's better. So here we go. Okay guys, so here's the Samsung S7. You can see it's got pretty nice saturated colors. It's wide angle. You get a little bit of distortion because of that. Shauna had to get awful close. But, you know, there's the image. And then next, here's the Canon 10D. And you can see that much less distortion. Everything looks a lot more natural because of the 50mm lens, which isn't really fair since you can't really put a 50mm lens on a cell phone camera. But still, that's an option you're going to have with a digital SLR, which makes them a little better. Now, if we go compare both at the same time, you can really start to see how different JPEG processing is. Both of these are JPEGs right out of phone. I didn't use RAW on the digital SLR. I haven't done any editing to either one. These are straight out of the phone. It's kind of blows my mind what the Samsung did to the colors. It really brightened them up. It saturated them. That pink is way more pink. Taking a picture of stuff from a distance, the Canon wins. Stand up, you got the blurry background. You got, to me, also just kind of cleaner colors and cleaner, closer to actually white. Whereas the Samsung got a little bit off maybe on its white balance. Now, a somewhat more fair contest for the Samsung is a flat lay, just looking straight down through the ring light and taking a picture of what's in front of us. You can see the Samsung kind of nailed it with this. The colors look really great. Everything looks really saturated, looks really sharp. Looks like a great image. And the Canon kind of fell apart for some reason. Colors look incredibly dull. It just really just does not look good out of the camera. Now I can edit this picture, and I actually did edit it, and it looks great. Looks just like the Samsung. It took me about 2 or 3 minutes in Photoshop, working with a couple filters and the saturation to get it to look, you know, pretty good. But out of the camera, the Canon just was terrible here. So when it comes to flat lay, there's absolutely no advantage to me for the Canon, for, you know, the digital SLR. Any cell phone camera is probably going to do a better job. Any modern cell phone camera is probably going to do a lot better job. Okay guys, so one last test to look at here. We wanted to try low light. So we turned the room lights off. There was just a light on in another room. It was pretty dark in there. And the cell phone decided that it needed to use ISO 500 and 1/10 of a second because the lens has built-in image stabilization. The cell phone lens is 1.7 f-stop, so it lets a lot of light in, and it does an amazing job in low light. I am stunned just by how, you know, great this camera does in low light. Now, to get a fair test, considering the fact that the Canon is only 6 megapixels and everything, and just to kind of compare image sensors, I thought what would be pretty fair is to use the 50mm, because it is 1.8, and that way I didn't have to use like a crazy high ISO setting, because I was going to have to use like ISO 1600. So to get a fair comparison, I used the 1.8. ISO was at 400, so a little tiny bit lower than the cell phone camera, and I got about the same. These are both at right around 100%. So we're not zoomed in too much on one or the other. And as you can see, the cell phone camera looks a lot brighter. It kind of looks maybe a little sharper, but when you actually look close, you can see it isn't. It's got a lot of sharpening applied to it, which maybe gives it the impression of being sharper, but it's really not. The colors are a little warmer, and I really think the colors are better on the cell phone camera. Of course, it would be very trivial for me to amp up the colors a little bit and try to and get similar, brighter, warmer colors. Now, when we zoom in closer, you can really tell that the cell phone camera isn't getting as sharp of an image. You can see the sharpness much better on the DSLR with the 50 millimeter lens. Again, this is just low light. I'm pretty impressed. You think about 400 ISO and you get a really nice, clean, sharp image with a 50 1.8 in a dark room, even with a 15-year-old camera. This was a great camera for its time, and it still is a good camera. It does a lot and for $50, if you could get one of these, I mean, if that's what you have to spend, it's worth it.